on the advocacy side, I want to go back to that time you spoke up, dramatic pause, and Ted Kennedy says you shouldn't have to. What was it? You shouldn't
have to beg.
You shouldn't have to beg. Was that that experience, that moment, did that help you? I guess in your further advocacy when you went up
absolutely.
there, did that kind of put you on the map in a way?
I would say
in a way, getting that endorsement from him.
Getting that endorsement from him. It wasn't long after that things kind of changed on the state level, and we started getting some additional funding. We've worked really hard. The Ryan White Care Act, it has to be, you have to get it reappropriated every couple of years, so that takes a lot of work. Right now, the Community Health Center grant is messed up in the in the budget hearings right now, so there's a lot of advocacy on that front. I'll probably make a few phone calls this afternoon just to remind people that what our needs are and that we're taking care of people that no one else takes care of.
And did that experience just give you additional confidence? I don't know if you were...
I don't know. I don't know if it's because I was a teacher. I don't know if I've just always been the kind of person that that doesn't mind speaking up. I mean, you go through those Myers-Briggs things and you find out what kind of a person you are. And I'm an outward person. And this is my passion. This is what I, care most about.
Yeah.
Taking care of people that need help.
That's awesome. I've said this to others. I think I was on a guest on another podcast, and we were talking about kind of that, hey, what's your favorite episode? And look, I don't have favorites. You can ask me my favorite color and I'll give you 5. I can't ever winnow it down. Right. And so, but what is, what I really enjoy about just interviewing is it's kind of like my own therapy in a way. On one hand, it allows me to put my own life into perspective as I hear other people's stories and their experiences, whatever it may be. And then it also is sometimes very just motivational. And or it just motivational, like I should get more involved. I should do this. I should do that. And I've talked about this several times where when you live in the DC area or maybe San Francisco or New York, and it can be very, it just sucks the life out of you because there's so much, it takes so much energy to go to work, right? To commute to work, and then the pressure of whatever your job is. But if you have an intense job, well then, and you got to do your intense job all day, then you got to slough home, and then you don't usually have time and energy to do anything.
Right.
To serve on a board or volunteer here or coach, and you just kind of drag your knuckles through life to some degree. And then, but living here now, I feel like this awakening where life, it's not as congested like a big major metropolitan area. And I don't have this mega commute. So now I feel like I'm finally coming alive of, I should be more involved. And I love the process I get of researching organizations, learning more, and which is going to lead me to my next question. And then I just appreciate individuals like you, particularly when I see, oh my goodness, basically for your adult life, this is what you've been involved in, right? Most of your career, all of your career, and that's rare. I was just telling this guy, and I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming you found your calling in life.
I have found my calling.
There may be, I don't know if you're the type. I am still kind of that person who's like, well, maybe what's next for me, or what am I going to do when I grow up, even though I'm close to 50.
But what I'm 65. What I find is there's always a what's next within our organization.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So that's what motivates me, that we could take care of babies. We could take care of 3,000 children that don't have a provider, most of which who have Medicaid. I think 60% of our clients in our pediatric clinic are Medicaid patients. And so that's wonderful, that because a regular doctor's office can't
They're not going to take Medicaid.
They can't take med. I'm not even saying they won't. I'm saying they can't. We do get a bump in by taking care of Medicaid. We do get an enhanced Medicaid rate. That's one of the perks of being a community health center, and to make us sustainable, because the whole thing is, if we're not sustainable, we get very little funding, less than $1 million, to take care, to have our primary care physician, our primary care clinic. So it goes into the pot, but we have to be sustainable. So we do charge people's insurance. We charge, if you're Medicaid, we charge, you have a very small copay, but we do offer all these services for you. And it's not just going into the doctor's office. Everybody has a case manager or a social worker. They're all LBSWs or MSWs. We have 21 social workers at our organization that work across the organization. If you have problems with transportation and you can't get to our clinic, if you have emergency food needs, we're going to give you a referral over to Manna House. We work with all the other nonprofits in town. We work with First Stop. We work with Manna House. We work with National Children's Advocacy Center. They take care of the behavioral health for our children, because we do not have the capacity at this point to have somebody qualified to do mental health for children. So we give these referrals, and then they come back to us for their primary care. If they don't have money for their medications, our pharmacy program works with clients so that they can get those medications they need. We have an agreement with an organization called Dispensary of Hope out of Nashville, where people who are under 200% of the federal poverty level, and if they can't pay for their medications, we pay $14,000 a year to belong to this pharmacy. And on Monday afternoon, our nurse manager will order the medications that she thinks she's going to need. She looks at who's coming in the next week for clinical, and will order inhalers or whatever. And they don't pay for it. We hand it to them when they leave our office. So we know that they're not taking their prescription and just wadding it up and throwing it down in the parking lot because they don't have the money to pay for it. So these are the kinds of things we look for, gaps in what our clients need, and then we try to fill those gaps.
Let's talk now. Let's expound on that if we could. And you've touched on a few organizations there. Wellstone is emotional, mental health. First Stop is for the
homeless.
The homeless. It's not a shelter, but they're helping them kind of where they're at. Of which some of that could be physical stuff where they might refer them to you. Are you all the only entity in town, nonprofit in town, that's kind of focused just on the physical side?
No, actually, and I appreciate you letting me say that. There is another group just like ours. It's called Central North. I think on the Parkway you see their lighted sign that says Family Health, maybe.
Okay.
They are a federally qualified health center, have been in this community as long as we have been taking care of HIV and AIDS. They've been doing what we're doing now. There's also...
but they've been in FQHC longer.
Oh, a long time. 35 years.
Okay.
And then there's also a group called Happy Clinic, HAPPI Clinic, that is what they call the look-alike, what we were before we became. Now, let me say that even with all three of us in town, our last community health needs assessment, which we're getting ready to do this fall, we found that 92,000 people in Madison County do not have adequate health care.
Yeah.
That go to the emergency room or go to an urgent care or don't have anything at all. So even if all three of us were totally maxed out, There you go. Even if all three of us couldn't take another patient, we'd still have people that there's need for. So as that need continues with new people moving to town, we will need to expand to that larger building and then possibly even look at expanding maybe into the New Hope area or maybe into the Meridianville area. We all three of the CEOs, we work together, we talk things out, we network with each other. We did a community health fair in August. I think it was August the 12th, as part of Community Health Center Week, where we were out at Park in North Huntsville, and we had like 25 booths of people that could help income strained individuals. We had a DJ there. We had bouncy houses. We gave away food. We had a petting zoo. And it's all about finding out, because, you know, we can help if you know to come to us. That's why it's so important for us to have billboards and have these kinds of things, podcasts, and be on the radio and all that. It's just about connecting people to what they need.
So how much, you mentioned the article earlier in the paper that was yesterday or today?
It's yesterday. How
much does it frustrate you that when they don't reach out to you for comment, your opinion?
A lot. There was and you know, I'm not quiet about it. There was a healthcare forum back in January, and in December when I saw that they were going to have this healthcare forum, I called and I said, I would really like to be on that panel. Oh, we've already set up the panel. I said, okay. And so I went ahead and filled up my day in January, you know, or February, whenever it was, with other things. I think I was actually in Montgomery at that point. And there were questions. Well, what do we do about if people don't have a place to go? And the people on the panel, I'm not going to call them out, but they said, we don't know. Now, if I had been on that panel, I could have talked about it. So it is very frustrating because we are a part of the healthcare infrastructure. Again, I use that word for Huntsville. And it can't be just one entity. We all have to work together to take care of the people that live in our community.
I just interviewed Chris Krebs at the National Cyber Summit. Now, you may not know the name, but he was the first director of CISA, the critical infrastructure, cybersecurity, or whatever. But he talked about, we didn't talk about it. Well, we talked about it somewhat at length, but he was the first director, right? It was this brand new thing. And part of that exercise that they did early as a team and his staff that he assembled was, what is critical infrastructure? What counts? And they came up with, a lot more elements, that maybe had been previously thought of. But then they got into the interdependencies, and it became quite an eye-opening experience, I think, for him and for the other people on what really makes up critical infrastructure. And sometimes people may not think and overlook something like healthcare. You know,
I worked at the Red Cross when we had the 89 tornadoes. And so for months, I was not doing my regular job, but helping out with, interviewing, being a case manager, interviewing people that had needs. When you have a disaster like a tornado or a flood or COVID, everybody has to come together. We actually are part of the EMA circle. And and they do desktop kind of emergency situations from time to time. We have policies and procedures, what to do in this kind of a situation. And we all have to band together in that kind of a situation to help. What about somebody's medication? It's all blown away because they lost their home. And they need that medication just to live. So, we all have to work together to try to help take care of people, not just every day, but also in emergency situations.
Do you feel that I'm going to call it a snub. Sometimes you get snubbed, right, from contributing to something or being invited to something. Is it? Do you feel there might be this this attitude that, hey, you guys are good on your own now, like you're flying on your own and you've got your hooks into the state and federal stuff that, and you don't necessarily need Huntsville, or
Oh my gosh, it couldn't be any further from the truth, Troy. I actually, I know you can't imagine this, but I get myself into doors that necessarily it doesn't always. I wasn't the first person they thought of to come and speak. I'm very outspoken at my Rotary. We get great guest speakers, and they always know that I'm going to somehow ask a question. And so it's almost, it's not a snub. It's more I need to make sure that people know who we are and how we help the citizens of Huntsville. I don't take it as a snub at all.
or like, you've gotten your limelight,
Oh,
Neymar.
yeah,
we
you've
gotta
had
get
your
somebody
10
else
seconds. Yeah. And you know what?
You got to meet Ted Kennedy.
It's so. I actually was inside the White House on a couple of occasions, but one with Barack Obama the day he was. A friend of mine had gotten asked if he wanted to come have Obama congratulate the Alabama. What did I say? The Alabama team after one of our championships. And I said, heck yeah, I'll go to the White House. So I actually have, I should have given you those pictures. I have pictures of Obama from here to me.
Really?
And from right there. It was, I've gotten myself into some really cool things.
Yeah.
Once when we were talking about PrEP, the pre-exposure prophylactics, the medication that people can take now, and they essentially, if they take it every day, they're at risk for HIV. They're not going to get it through sex. We have 450 people on that medication who feel themselves that they are at risk for catching HIV, or for not catching it, but acquiring HIV. So I got asked to come to the White House, and it was the summer that my mom had passed away, and she lived here in Huntsville, and I took care of her. And
what year is this?
so let's see, it would have been 8 years ago, 9 years ago, 8 years ago.
So still Obama.
Still Obama,
Okay.
yeah. And I got asked to come to the inside the White House to be on a work group.
Okay.
And I thought that it was I've been in the White House, but I've been in kind of the West Wing, where or in the outer area. You're not like, well, you wouldn't walk down the aisle and see somebody, you know. It's basically a place where they do a lot of small group kind of things, and there's usually about 100 people in the room. So I thought it was one of those opportunities, and I got a call. I had gotten back to work, and I had gotten a call that I had not RSVP'd to come to the White House. And I said, well, you know, I've had a lot going on, blah, blah, blah. And I just thought that maybe I wasn't sure if I could make it this time. And he said, you have to come. I went, oh, okay. You're on the list. I said, okay. So I went to the White House, and I walked in, and there was head of the CDC, head of, I mean, it was like a small group of people. I still have my nameplate from in the White House. And
task force type thing.
Task force kind of thing. And what the reason that I was there was because I was a small organization who saw a lot of people, and how was I going to be able to get PrEP, this pre-exposure prophylaxis, out to the people who needed it? And they wanted a perspective of somebody, you know, of my size. So I'm sitting there and I'm listening, and I'm not interrupting people or, you know, any of that. And finally I said, you know, it's kind of like, and PrEP is expensive. It's actually an HIV drug. Mm-hmm. And there are now 3 medications that can be used based on your need. But there was one at that time. It was Gilead, and it was called Truvada. And I said, okay, guys, think back about the late 50s and the early 60s. I said, women were offered the pill, but it was really white women who had insurance who were able to get the pill. We have the same analogy going on today. The people who really need PrEP are not necessarily, everybody needs PrEP, but who really needs it is the low income, people without insurance. So we have to figure out a way. We figured it out in the 60s. You made it so affordable so that we gave it out everywhere. We gave it out at clinics, and you could, everywhere you could get, and you could plan for pregnancy. So that is exactly where we need to be today. And they all went, oh.
Who was chairing that meeting?
His name was Wyckoff, and it started with a W. It's, after COVID,
it's fine.
You forget names a little bit. He was the head of the White House task force on trying to, health.
Okay.
Trying to think about health.
Yeah.
And I had met him someplace, and we had talked for a bit, and so he made sure that I was on that task force.
I think this might be a time to tell your Elton John story.
Okay, real quick.
Before we forget.
Yeah, real quick. So I had just become the executive director, and Elton John was coming to Huntsville for the very first time to be at the arena. And we all knew I had tickets. A very good friend of mine had gotten me tickets. She and I a ticket, and we all afternoon. Well, the weeks prior, I was trying to get to somebody who would get me to Elton John so that I could talk to him. And, no luck. So the day of the concert.
Now, was he aware of you at all?
No.
Okay.
Nope. I'm sitting at my desk, and I said, I'm going to write a letter to Elton John. So I wrote this letter on our letterhead. Dear Mr. John, I am the executive director of our local aid service organization, and we struggle at best here in Huntsville. If you could just mention our organization in tonight's performance, it would go such a long way to help out our cause. Thank you for what you do. Sincerely, Mary Elizabeth. Until there's a cure, which a lot of time is how I do my tagline. Until there's a cure, Mary Elizabeth Marr.
Wow.
So we had one of those little red ribbons that had our, AAC on it. And I had my card, and I punched the lapel pin through the letter and through my card, and I went to get to the Civic Center. Well, had a couple beers, trying to get my dose of courage. And I went down to where you went, the side where you went to backstage. They were still setting things up and everything. And a security guard stopped me and he said, "Where are you going?" And I said, "I'm the director of our local aid service organization, and I need to get this letter to Elton John." He said, "Get back to your seat. You're not going to get to see Elton John." Oh. So he walked away, and I went ahead and walked through. I have a lot of guts sometimes. I got to the next place, and there was a little group of people, and they were all wearing backstage passes. So I walked up to this very friendly-looking woman, and I said, "Is that a backstage pass you're wearing?" And she said, "Yes." And I said, "You see, I'm the director of our local aid service organization, and I need to get to Elton John. So you want me to give you my backstage pass?" I said, "Oh, no. I said, if you could just get this letter to Elton John when you get to go backstage, that would be great." She goes, "Oh, I can do that." I go back to my seat. I'm high on the whole aura of what's going on at the Elton John concert.
Right.
This was a long time ago. This was about 25 years ago.
Was this before the Probst Arena?
Well, I mean,
that is the Probst Arena?
No, that was the Probst Arena.
Oh,
they just renamed
name.
it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
So I'm all excited and, this is going to happen, blah, blah, blah. We're dancing. And all of a sudden, about halfway through the performance, I said, she was wearing a backstage pass. She's not going to get to Elton John until after the concert is over.
Oh.
So I kind of started crying. I was very emotional. And my friend said, this is my friend Gail Perna, who has been with the organization many, many, many years as a supporter. And she was our first executive director. She said, you did what you could. You tried. You did what you could. So I said, you're right. Let's just enjoy the concert. So the last song is Benny and the Jets, and he's putting his foot up on the piano, and the lights are flashing and all that kind of stuff. He gets finished and he walks off, and he walks back on after a few minutes.
Encore.
He's changed his clothes, and he's holding a white piece of paper.
Oh no.
And I am like petrified, and the cameras, the jumbotrons, are looking down at the letter, and I'm seeing my red ribbon, and I'm going, oh no, my God. So he sits down at the piano. There's just him. He puts the letter on top of the piano.
Wow.
And he says, you know that AIDS is my cause. There are 30 million people in the world infected with this terrible disease. And he said, I care about people who take care of people living with HIV. And there is an organization in your city that is struggling. He used my word. And he said, and this letter is from the AIDS Action Coalition, and this letter was written by Mary Elizabeth Marr.
Wow.
Well, all over the arena, I heard, obviously friends.
I know her.
Screaming.
She's here.
They didn't come and put a spotlight on me or anything, but then he played Last Song, and there wasn't a dry eye in the house. It was very moving, and I got a front page article in the Huntsville Times the next day, and the organization got a little bump in our donations, and it was amazing. So that's my two truths and a lie. I actually have a Elton John story.
I thought he might invite you to come backstage.
It's okay. It's okay. I actually got backstage at he's been to Huntsville about 3 times. Mm. And my daughter Morgan was she was at Montevallo at the time, and I had gotten 2 tickets, and I had backstage passes from one of the TV stations had gotten me some backstage passes. This was maybe about 8 years ago. Yeah. And, we got backstage, but he wasn't there. He was backstage. Yeah. But we, got to talk to a lot of people, and it was a lot of fun. And we had a great mother-daughter experience of being on the floor for an Elton John concert.
Yeah. I mean, going back to the story of Ryan White, when they decided as a family they needed to move from Kokomo in Indiana to some town south of there.
Florida. Well, Kokomo, they left and went just in Indiana, and then they ultimately moved to Florida.
But that move it to further in Indiana, mm-hmm. Elton John helped pay for that house.
I know.
Some of the money, I guess, came from donors or whatever, right? Kind of raising funds for Ryan's care, and or just the it's so hard. I was listening to some of the audio, right, where this kid pleading to whomever, like what the kids do to him, mm-hmm. And the things they say to him, and I just hope they will meet their maker, these people, at some point, and if they're still alive, I hope that it eats at them a little bit, or they've changed.
Right.
They've changed as people. Like you don't do that.
You don't do that. You don't look at someone's misery as or what's going on with a person.
Yeah.
I make no judgment.
Yeah.
I make no judgment because it's not my place.
Yeah.
We as an organization just try to help people.
Yeah, and even if Ryan was a child, mm-hmm. but even if it was a gay man who got it through sex, you don't do that to people.
You don't do that to people.
Right? That's someone's child.
It is someone's child, It is someone's sister. It's someone's brother. And there are a lot of people, and you know, it goes the same way with our community health center. People aren't homeless because they want to be.
Right.
There are lots of issues that go into that. People do not have Hep C because they were a bad person.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there are lots of things that we can take care of, and you should not have judgment about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been thinking a lot lately about, you know, like, well, how do you change this? How do you change that? Like, unless you were there, like that first day that child came into remembering things, right? Like you come into the world when you're around 3, 4, 5 years old, and you start having a memory. Well, you're impressioned very early on things, right? Mm-hmm. Like, well, anti-gun. Well, you know what? Try to imagine if you were 5 years old living in Iowa and traveling to the gun show with your grandfather. You know, those are the things that are cemented into that child's brain, right, wrong, or indifferent when it comes to guns, or that terror, that person who's born in Pakistan or Afghanistan or wherever. What are they learning when they're 4 and 5 years old towards the West, towards America, right? Like, these are things that, like, you can pick any topic, right? Whether or not I root for the Cleveland Browns. Who roots for the Cleveland Browns? People whose father or mother or family probably
are from
Cleveland, right? And it's instilled in them.
Right.
I've had people on this show where I'll be like, oh, I don't really like football, but I will root for the Broncos because my Uncle Pete liked the Broncos, right? Like, these are things that are deep seated.
Absolutely.
And you know, and I'm aware of that more and more. And like, so you can't judge people. You don't know, you weren't there their whole life. And just because, you know, you think about something, and why doesn't everybody think this way?
Right.
It's very complicated.
Very, very complicated.
So
we have a connection that you don't know about.
Oh, really?
So I went to high school in Alexandria, Virginia.
Did you? T.C. Williams?
No.
West Potomac? No.
No, I was at Hayfield.
Oh, you went to Hayfield?
Right out the back gate of Fort Belvoir. And I was actually at that T.C. Williams game, which remember the Titans?
Yeah. When they played Hayfield.
When we played Hayfield. And I was in that stand that night.
Were you?
Yes.
So you saw the team?
Saw the team.
I know
the boogie dance. It was fun.
So I have a few things I know about how that movie was inaccurate.
Oh, I have heard that as well.
Like the guy, Gary Bertier, when he got hit by the car, that was at graduation. He played in the state championship.
Right.
So they took that accident and just, you know.
And just kind of
moved it back to a dramatic part. The coach was actually worse than portrayed in the movie, Coach Boone. There was, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, there really wasn't a black-white issue on the team. It was, they brought these teams together, and it was about playing time.
It was about playing time, but actually
that was better
at Hayfield. It was deep when race was an issue in high schools, in schools. Yeah. Period. And it was like at the beginning, Hayfield High School had 4 interior schools. It was Lafayette, Washington. I don't remember the other 2, and it was crazy. All the black kids were in their lockers were all on one floor.
Oh, wow. So there was some segregation.
There was some segregation.
Yeah.
And it was, you know, being a military daughter, a military wife, a military sister, a military mother, there's no place for race in the military. And we grew up not ever understand, you know, not even ever thinking about it until we went to school in a place that was not a military school.
Now, was your father at Belvoir when you were going to Hayfield?
Actually, he was downtown at Military District of Washington.
Okay.
He was downtown, and
How'd you know I went to her? Well, I went to Herndon.
I didn't know you went to Herndon, and Herndon was out in the cornfields.
Yeah, way out there. Well, probably, it was probably fairly new.
It was new
at that time.
It was new. No, I just knew from you saying that you were from Northern Virginia.
Yeah. I remember as a kid, youth football.
Yes.
So one of the best experiences I ever had. My story is we lived in Utah until I was in first grade, and then we moved to McLean.
Mm-hmm.
We lived with my grandparents. There's a whole story there. I won't go into that, but I was so glad because now I'm a minority because everyone that I went to school with were the children of diplomats. So my friends were Korean, Japanese, Chinese, Australian, Danish, you name it. There might have been 5 of us who were just from the U.S., right?
From the U.S.
And so I had this cultural experience. It's in second grade, and I loved it. And so then I moved to Herndon, and now Herndon was a little bit more black, white, and some Hispanic, and most of my friends are black because we played football.
Right.
Man, I tell you what, every time we went down to Route 1, which is where West Potomac, T.C. Williams, I don't think I've ever been to Hayfield's campus.
Telegraph Road.
Telegraph Road. We would get our butts kicked, number one, and it was awesome because then you realize where you need to get. Like it's kind of that measuring stick moment.
Right.
Oh, if you want to be the best, you've got to be able to beat those guys.
Those guys.
And sometimes there were schools like Robinson and Lake Braddock who just had huge enrollment.
Oh my gosh.
So they had the ability to pick from 4,000 kids, their best football team, but the best athletes were down on Route 1.
Yep.
And West Potomac was a force when I was
West
Springfield baseball.
Yep. Absolutely. So
that's cool.
Just a little bit of
Yeah.
funniness. You can always find somebody in a crowd that you have a connection with.
Well, and
you don't
also
ever know what it is.
You know what also Route 1 is known for is they actually have a Krispy Kreme shop there, and they make the donuts. Did you know that? Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
And after,
Yes, I do.
I remember my mother-in-law came to visit us. We were living in Sterling at the time. I was married, and I lived in Falls Church, Sterling, Round Hill, Winchester, and I moved here. And but at one point she came to visit us. We were living in Sterling, and she wanted Krispy Kreme donuts, and I drove all the way down to Route 1 because like that's the only place you can get them, unless you're just going to go to the grocery store,
Right.
And get the the glazed. Well, she wanted like a lemon donut. I'm like, oh my gosh, I drive all the way down there.
So funny.
Do you have any final shout outs or any thoughts you want to extend?
Well, and I talked a little bit about this very briefly, but Thrive Alabama's staff is just the most amazing staff.
Mm-hmm.
They work really hard. We have the same issues as every other healthcare facility in the world today. Workforce is like one of our major barriers. But the people who work at Thrive Alabama, they're there because they want to be there.
Let me just show this a little bit. Here's from your website. So a little bit of your team. I know it's not your full team.
Mm-hmm. That's
but this is your
Jitesh
executive
Parmar,
team.
yep,
Yeah.
and Stephanie Harville, and then Melinda Hooten is our CMO.
Yeah.
Go to our website. I'm going to do a shameless plug here. Go to our website. Check us out. We do have a donate page. And we're just trying to build this building for the community. So we need the community's help.
If Tommy Battle was here, he was just here actually sitting in that chair on September 11th.
Oh, wow.
I actually was I was telling you about it. I went out to Idaho.
Mm-hmm.
I had a red eye. So it's so funny when like somebody might say, hey, when can we get together? Oh, I'm wide open. You choose. So when it comes to the mayor, which is tougher, right?
It is tougher.
Even getting Mimar is a tough
Listen, I've got him this afternoon, so I can tell you it's hard to get him.
But so it took a while to get that set up. And we've been talking almost 2 hours. I wasn't going to get more than an hour of his time. Okay,
Right.
whatever. But I'd love more. But as it turns out, as much as I said, hey, and I'll make any time work, it happened to be Monday, and I took a red eye back from Salt Lake, going to Nashville. I don't sleep well on planes, and I'm like, and I was going to be like, oh, no, that's not a good day for me. But I'm one of those people like, no, you seize opportunity.
Absolutely.
And if I had said no, it may have been 2024 before I get that chance again, right?
Right.
And so I'm like, all right, I'll make it work. So I was very tired, but we did the interview. If he was here, and I know you've seen him and you've talked to him, and when it comes to this facility, what would you say?
I would say we need the city's help. This is just as important as the other things, and there's a lot on the city's plate. I understand that. but the city can also do a lot of good for nonprofits in town. We do things that nobody else wants to do, basically. And I really need some of that opioid settlement money to bring us to a point that we can break ground, we can get the building built, and then we can start getting it, getting employees to be working in it so that we can take it's not going to happen overnight. People say to me all the time, but where are you going to find staff? Well, we're not going to try to hire 100 people overnight. We now have about 6,500 clients. We'll get to 10,000 clients. We'll need to add additional staff. We get to 11,000 patients. We'll add additional staff. But we have to be able to do that. Right now, we can't because we're totally landlocked. And there is no real estate as far as empty buildings that they would need to be so. We need sinks in every room.
Yeah.
I mean, they would have to be rehabbed, and that would eat into the money that I'm trying to save to build the building.
Yeah.
So it's not an easy situation. I know it's not an easy situation for the city council. I just need for them to help us out because this is going to be for Huntsville and Madison County.
I wouldn't say that. I used to kind of be in your spot. I wasn't a CEO, but I ran a really large program, and seemingly I get so tired of like dumb questions, like, well, how are you going to do that? And it's like, all right, and I tell my kids, like, don't ask me a question that you actually, if you thought about it for 2 seconds, you could figure out the answer. You could be driving down the road. Why are they doing that? Why are you asking me? Like, just think about that question you just asked, how stupid that is. How would my dad know why that motorist is doing, whatever.
Right.
But similarly, like, we're like, well, how are we going to do that? Okay, hold on. Let me ask you some questions. How have we done in the past? Well, we've done this and that. Okay, that's exactly what we're going to do.
Absolutely.
In fact, we're going to use the same template.
Yeah.
This isn't,
What
science.
do we say in Huntsville? It's not rocket science.
It's not rocket science. But the most difficult things, I would say rocket science is easy as compared to getting federal funds or state funds or advocating, lobbying, whatever you want to call it. That's hard work.
It is hard work.
Rocket science is so much easier than that.
Well, I don't know because I can't put artists on Mars. So, but we all have our part.
Yeah.
And keeping people in Huntsville healthy is my part.
Sure.
And it's Thrive's part. And it's every one of the supporters that believe in us and all the people that know we're going to do. Oh, Mimar, I know you're going to get this done. Well, I wish you would kind of
help out a little bit.
Help me because I stay awake nights worrying about things.
Yeah.
But we know we're doing the right thing. We know it's important, and it will happen. I just need it to happen sooner rather than later.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you a couple fun questions.
Okay.
All right. And hopefully this is just for your staff if they've never heard these before. Although they probably have, right? You've been working with them so long. Favorite color?
Blue.
What's your second favorite color?
Actually, black. I wear a lot of black clothes.
If you could, it's tough to say, hey, if you could live anywhere else, where would you live? But if you thought, like, let's think about the retirement. Is there a place you would like to retire to that's not Huntsville?
My staff actually knows this, and most people that know me. Another podcast. My family 100 years ago we were from the upstate. I'm talking Canadian border of New York.
Way upstate.
And actually, one of my sons is up there this weekend at our cabin. It's been in the family for 100 years.
Wow.
And he's up there for Columbus Day weekend, and he's going to kind of close up the cabin. We go up there. I try to go up there for a month in the summer, and I have fiber so that I can work from up there.
Holy smokes.
But yet the cabin has very little running water. I mean, we're talking a family cabin up in the upstate. So that's where I would live. That's what I want to do when I retire is spend my summers up there, get my family to come up and visit whenever they can, and then spend my winters in Huntsville.
So you're telling me I can't get fiber to my house, even though I live in Huntsville, the 110th largest city in the U.S., but yet you barely have running water. on the Canadian border in New York, but you have fiber to your house?
I would say that New York is very concerned about plugging people in
That's
rural
awesome.
areas.
That's awesome.
That's a problem.
What's the
in
name of the
Alabama.
town?
The closest town is Potsdam.
Oh, Potsdam, yeah.
Yeah, Potsdam.
SUNY College is in Potsdam.
SUNY is in Potsdam, Clarkston.
Yeah.
My great grandfather taught at St. Lawrence University. Paul Smith's is over. We're about 2 hours from Lake Placid, so Paul Smith's College, where you can get a degree in beer making.
So did you go to the Olympics when it was in Lake Placid?
You know, we did not go to the Olympics. Our cabin is not winterized.
Okay.
And it gets to be about 20 below zero. We
Yeah.
did go to the cabin for a day when my daughter was about a year old. And it was so freaking cold.
Yeah.
But I've been up there in October when the leaves are beautiful. I've gone up there for fall break. And it's a wonderful, peaceful place for me to get re-energized.
Yeah. My buddy, his family had a cabin in Maine. And there was off this lake, Belgrade Lakes. And same thing. They always go up at a certain time and close it down. And I couldn't really understand that, but you kind of just articulated that, right?
Well,
like,
your pipes would freeze. They
Yeah.
would bust in the ice. You have to, shore everything up. And there's a lot to closing and opening
Yeah.
a cabin.
beautiful in the summer.
Oh, it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. I was up there this summer for 3 weeks, and we had 2 fires in the fireplace. That's all, because they were having a heat wave up there.
Mm-hmm.
But the kids, want to roast marshmallows. So,
any pet you probably would never own, but you kind of would want to own?
I don't know.
Some people might want a monkey.
You're not allowed to own these, but my granddaughter's favorite pet or favorite animal is a panda, and I would love to have a baby panda for her.
Okay, that's cool. They are cute. They do get big.
They do get big. They are leaving the Washington Zoo this year. It's so sad. They're going back to China.
I remember that. I grew up, having grown up in the D.C. area, Ling Ling and Sing Sing and all the other
yes.
pandas they had. Aisle or window?
Window.
Okay.
Window. I don't like to climb over some. I get in my seat and I stay there.
And you stay there.
I don't want to have to get up for somebody to get out.
Okay.
So that's a funny question.
What do you want to be remembered for?
I want to be remembered, hopefully, for trying to do the right thing.
Okay.
Whatever that is.
And not shy when opportunity presents itself.
Not shy. People say, how can you ask for money? All they can say is no.
Right.
And you never know until you ask.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, I ask for big amounts of money, but it's because we need it.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm trying to take my staff to Aruba or something. I mean, it's to stay every drop of money we put back into our program.
Yeah. Well, Mar, it's been a pleasure having you.
Troy, it's really been a lot of fun. And I hope a lot of people listen and reach out to us and try to find out more about Thrive Alabama.
Yeah, I'll do a lot of clips. A lot of clips will come from this and segments, but help spread the word too.
Thank you.
It's
people like you that help us to get to our goal.
Yeah, I look forward to it. I'm just so glad, right? I'm just so thrilled to have the opportunity to get to know people like you, and now be in a community where I feel like, okay, now I'm going to help make a difference.
And isn't the Huntsville community just like one of the best?
Yeah, if you go back,
there are kind people in this community.
Yeah.
We all. Some of us can remember when the Parkway was one level. People came here with the space program and built Huntsville to be what it is today, and it is one of the nicest places to live in the United States.
think I would summarize it. On one hand, those who are more natives or have been here a long, long time are welcoming to some degree of. I know that there's always heartache over growth and different things, but they are welcoming. It's not like I had Joey CC on from Tom Madison who was talking about like you can't run for mayor if you're not from Mobile. If you're running for the mayor in Mobile, you're not going to run for mayor unless your grandfather was on the Mardi Gras committee and all
Right.
these things, right? It's very much
Your mom
tied-
was a Mardi Gras queen.
You have to. Your name precedes itself.
Actually, not even in Mobile, but maybe even in New Orleans.
Sure. But then, but the other side of it is I think there's a lot of people like me who, when you move here, you now have this kind of second chance at life, second chance of like, okay, I'm going to do things different. I'm going to take these lessons learned, and I don't know what percentage of people fall into that, but I think there are a lot of people who come from other places and they're just excited to be here and they've bought in, and it is very unique. So.
And I love the way the downtown Huntsville Inc. is really working to make Huntsville a cooler place to go, a destination city.
Yeah.
But we need health care.
That's true. Well, all the best to you.
Thank you.
I hope to catch up with you soon, and I'll stop by.
Please
if
do.
you don't mind dropping in, and I'm just really excited for you.
Okay. Thanks.
Take care.
I'll keep you in the know.
Please do.
Okay. Bye-bye.